there, and welcome to the Reception Podcast, where we just see things a little bit differently.
I'm Dan, your host, and today I'm joined by my little brother and my mum.
Hi!
And for today's episode, I just wanted to get straight into things, get the conversation up and running. So today we are talking about the effects that mental health can not only have on you, but also the people around you. Now these guys know a lot about this, because they have to deal with my unprovoked outbursts on a daily basis. Often left wondering what's gone on and what's wrong. Because, as I'm sure a lot of you are aware, when you have difficulties with perception and controlling your emotions, situations can often be caused by the smallest of things that most people wouldn't even notice. Now I find that this little thing normally tips me over the edge, because I've built up my anger throughout the day, so by that point I'm pretty much ready to erupt. This happens so often at home that it weirdly kind of becomes your new normal, and you are forced to get used to it. But in doing so, you forget that every time it happens, you could also be having a detrimental impact on other people's mood and days. I think this is a really interesting topic to talk about, and I want you guys to be as open and honest as you can be, because I think it's the most important part in finding out what's wrong and thinking of ways that you might be able to improve the situation, even if that's only a little bit. Now for the next bit, I normally do like kind of off-script conversational bit, but since I thought I'd guest for the first time on here, I thought I'd do more of an interview style based thing. I obviously still chip in, but I want you guys to really take the reins with this. So I guess the first question I kind of want to ask is, how does it make you guys feel when I spontaneously go into these states of like extreme anger, anxiety, or even sadness?
It makes me feel really annoyed because he does it all the time, and even if it's just a little noise, he gets so annoyed at me. And when he gets sad, it makes me feel sad as well, and then it makes me feel scared. It's just, I don't like it.
So what you're saying is when I have them extreme moments of emotion, it affects the whole house or flat. Is that what you're trying to say? It can be like that though, because obviously they're so extreme that if people are just going about their normal day, they won't normally experience them, and they just take over the whole atmosphere of the place. Do you know what I mean?
I think I find it more difficult now than I used to, because when you were little, I could deal with the outbursts, that was fine. But it was when I was trying to get you help and everybody would go, "What, Dan? Dan wouldn't do that. No, you must be exaggerating."
Yeah.
And the whole thing of not that I wasn't believed, because I was only telling people I trusted, but they just couldn't picture you with how you presented to them actually being like that in private.
It's almost like a subconscious act that I do, isn't it? It's there's two different parts of me, and I subconsciously flick that switch between, okay, I want to be presentable here. I want to come across as this good person subconsciously. So I make sure I don't swear and I don't have an outburst or anything like that. But then when I'm at home, because I feel more relaxed and I can just be myself, I kind of let all that go. And when you let all of that safeguard go, then it leads to just complete chaos. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it does. It's different dealing with it now, definitely, compared to when you were your brother's age. Now I just kind of don't know how to help you, because you're nearly an adult, and it's just that much more different to deal with than when you were a little child.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's so much a subconscious act, but obviously, as all parents teach their children, there's a certain way that you should behave in certain situations. And I found that in school, when you were visiting a relative, if you had a kind of idea in your head of how you were supposed to behave in front of those people or in that environment, and that's exactly what you did to the letter.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't so much subconscious as that's how you thought you had to act in that time and place.
So then I relaxed at home because I felt like I didn't have to, not an act then, I didn't have to perform to expectations.
Yeah, I suppose.
I've never liked getting in trouble though, have I? I've always been that goody two-shoes. I never like getting in trouble with people that I don't know, do you know what I mean? Because it's their impression of me is going to be this... I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I've always hated that feeling at school. If it was going to be, even though I knew my teacher, obviously I didn't know them personally, so if they were telling me off, I always thought that they would go home and think of me as the kid that did this bad thing. not like me as a person. Because you have, as I say, you have two sides of me. You have the side of me that does all this stuff, and there's also the side of me that is just this normal teenager that does still do stuff, but just like a normal teenager.
I don't know if I'd go so far as to say you were acting as a normal teenager when you went in those situations, but I know that the one and only time you ever got into trouble at school was in reception, and that in itself
That's
is
like
not
kind
normal.
of, yeah.
You would expect a child either to miss one break time or get one demerit at high school, or, you know, have at least one telling off in their time at primary or high school, and it just never came. Like I say, the last time that you actually did anything wrong was reception.
And I can remember that reception, like, to a T, like it happened yesterday. Like, I think it's not haunted me, but like kind of that's always been like an example in my head. Like, I can't get told off because this will happen. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think. And then I guess a follow up from that would be like, how does it make you guys feel that I could go into these like sort of reactions at any time, and there's no real way of like predicting it, even myself. Do you know, I never know when it's really coming.
It's just I'm expecting him to just like go from angry face, more angry face, really angry face, but then when he's just angry and then I make him angry again, he just goes straight to really angry face.
And how does that make you feel?
Just makes me feel really like, I don't know, really, I can't explain.
Okay.
That's a good point. What I'm more trying to get at is, you know, when like I'm completely normal, like we're having this chat now, like I'm not pulling an angry face, I'm not angry at you. And now if like you were to kick the microphone off or something like that, and then I like suddenly just flicked a switch, how would that make you feel?
Scared, because it's like when you get angry, even at mum probably or me, it's just like, I'm not sure, but I get scared, and I'm not sure if mum gets scared when that happens.
It is scary when that happens. It's not nice, is it?
Because it's like he's taller than all of us, and like it's just, what's that word that
Intimidating.
intimidating.
I obviously I've got to accept that, but I obviously never mean to be. I hope you know. I never want to scare you. You know what I mean. You're my little brother.
I know
at the end of the
that.
day.
I know that it's like hard for you to not do that when I just do the slightest thing, but it's just you do it, so you can't really undo something, can you?
Yeah, no. And, you know, that's something I want to talk about later as well, about like important about taking responsibility. But like that's the anger side of it, Sam. Like, what about when I can be doing something and then just absolutely sob my heart out for no reason, like, you know, when stuff like that happens, or get really anxious over going out the house or something like that.
It's just I don't get anxious, so like I feel like it's a little bit weird, but then I remember like you have like problems, and I remember like, oh, it's just normal, so so yeah.
Does it scare you or anything, or are you just slowly beginning to
So
like,
when
understand
you
it a
get
bit
like
more?
emotional,
Yeah.
it like scares me, because like when I was like a little kid, I always wanted my brother to have a happy life, not like a really bad life. So when he cried, I got scared that he would have a bad life.
Yeah. Right, so that was a brilliant response, Sam, really well thought out. I also want to like push it to you as well. Like, what do you think, like the spontaneity of me going into them sort of?
It's very, very hard to deal with, because obviously nobody, especially not a parent of any amount of children, let alone 2 boys, one of which has got special needs, it's you're not always at the top of your game. So if all of a sudden you lose your temper and I'm running at full speed and I'm fine, then it's relatively easy to deal with. If I'm running on empty, which is the case most of the time lately, then it's harder to have the clearness of mind to think of a way to deal with it, even though I've been to every workshop and asked advice from every professional and have this wealth of knowledge of how to deal with these things, actually finding my way to those strategies when I'm absolutely exhausted
And you're being emotionally attacked at the
and
same time.
I'm being emotionally attacked or threatened or belittled. Your natural responses have to come into it somewhere, and it is like fight or flight. And sometimes
You can't always play the therapist role. You have to play the charm role.
sometimes I back off completely and just go into another room and shut the door and hope that you won't follow, to be honest. And then other times, and I wouldn't say it's the fight mode, because obviously I would never raise my hands to you, but sometimes I have said things when I think afterwards, you really should not have said that. That did not help the situation at all.
But it's fair enough. If I'm coming at you with all this, and there's no better way to put it than shit, do you know what I mean? It's like, your natural reaction is just going to be, you've got to defend yourself in some way.
Yeah, but
Not physically.
always
but
as a
just
parent,
to
you
tell me
think
to
you
stop.
should have done better. And that is any parent in any situation that they think they could have handled differently. It's always that they could have done better, not that the child should have done it differently.
Yeah, that's the thing that I always struggle with my mental health, and why it's been such a big aspect of my life, where it's been such a big problem. Why I've probably started this is because I'm a very logical person, and like you were saying the other day, with maths, there is just, if you do this, this will happen.
Mm-hmm.
With mental health, if I don't know what's going on in my own head, how the hell are you going to know? Do you know what I mean? How is an 8-year-old with no emotional development so far? No, and this isn't like a bad thing about you. No 8-year-old has this, like, has no emotional intellect. How is he supposed to deal with a 17-year-old that doesn't know what's going on in his own head? Do you know what I mean? It's like,
It's not easy, is it?
it's just a difficult situation.
It's really not easy.
You're playing the role of negotiator in your own house. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's not.
The worrying thing is, though, for most parents, that will be without all the support and kind of guidance that I've had in it. I'm lucky enough to have friends and acquaintances who actually know this field very, very well and have supported me no end over the last, over a decade. But some parents and some children in your situation are completely left in the dark as to how to deal with it and to why it's happening and what they can do to make it any better or what they shouldn't do to stop making it any worse.
It's a case of, as well, no matter how much you read into it, and no matter how much you know, like, obviously you have friends, as you say, in the field, and they know so much and they've helped me out so much, but no matter how much you know and how much you can help somebody, you won't be able to help them 100% of the time, because you don't, as I keep going back to it, but you don't know what's going on in their head. Do you know what I mean?
Whatever you know, it doesn't cure the problem. It will help you manage it when it comes up, but it does not cure it.
And that's what I was really trying to stress last time, because mental health is not something you can just go and it's done.
Absolutely
Do you know
not.
what I mean? It's also about, it's just about getting through it. And I just really want to emphasise that. What are you going to say, Sam?
Can I say something?
Of course.
I don't think it's anything to do with this question. It's just, like, I think on one of the other questions I forgot to say something.
Mm-hmm.
That, do you know, like, sometimes when, like, I get annoyed at you, we get annoyed at each other.
Yeah.
It gets, like, to feel like, to both of us, that, like, we don't actually like each other as brothers.
Yeah.
But then actually, even if we're, like, in a really hard fight, we actually still, like, are very good brothers.
Yeah, of course you are.
And that actually leads, like, perfectly on to something I wanted to talk about. Like, the other day, for example, obviously I do online learning at my school, and it was a day where we didn't really do live lessons because all the teachers were doing training or something. And because of my sensory processing issues, I get really agitated with noise, as I've previously said in the first episode. And my mum and my little brother had, like, a day off school, so obviously, like, the noise was going to be an issue, and I just basically assumed that it'd be a win-win for everybody if I waited to do the work till later on, so that I could really concentrate. My brother would be in bed, and just basically there'd be no noise, so it wouldn't cause that animosity. Because obviously I assumed that though, and I didn't let my teacher know or anything. They basically emailed me later on like, where the hell's the work? This isn't like you. Are you okay? Because obviously that there's a 4:30 deadline at the end of the day, which I completely had forgotten about. And basically that just got me really anxious because obviously I like this whole goody two shoes representation. Not really goody two shoes, but just know that people know that I'm a good kid that will do the work. Do you know what I mean? So I got really anxious when they emailed me and like, what are they going to think of me and stuff like that. But that also translated into me being like really arsy at you, didn't it?
Yeah.
For no reason, over like the little list of things, because this anxiety that I didn't even notice was happening at the time was just manifesting itself into just animosity towards others because I had assumed something and I'd not done something wrong, but just like...
It hadn't worked out the way you anticipated.
My perception was off.
Yeah.
And yeah, just I couldn't control the situation and it didn't work out the way I thought it would. So I subconsciously just took that out on others. And I just think that's a really good example of like how in the moment you could do something and not realise you're doing it. But then later on looking back at it, just how like much of an effect it can have on people around you. In this case though, and others like it, I often become this kind of different person. I always say there's like two sides to me. I have this really stubborn perspective that if somebody tries to tell me while I'm in that kind of red mist tunnel vision that I'm doing something wrong, or not wrong, but just, Dan, you're in that sort of state again. I've got such a stubborn mindset that's just like, no, you're wrong. And I get really defensive. And even though this is kind of like an automatic reaction that I can't really purposefully control, and normally a lot of what comes of it, the effect that I have on others, is often a lot of the time accidental, I still think it's really important to still take responsibility. I think that that's mainly because it kind of stops the people thinking that you're kind of, I don't know, like narcissistically purposely trying to attack them, and it takes the blame off them a little bit, like they haven't caused it, and you know yourself, even though it wasn't maybe like you meant to do it, you know that at the end of the day it was still your actions that led to the bad atmosphere, and it was nothing that they did, and it's nothing that anybody could have predicted or controlled. But you still have to own up to your actions at the end of the day, because it's for everybody to know that it wasn't them, and so that they can just eventually get through it and get past it.
And also it's a way of you acknowledging that although you have these different conditions, that although they are the reason for it, it cannot excuse what you do.
Oh yeah,
so
definitely.
you still have to take responsibility, which when you were younger you couldn't at all. And it was only when you were about 10, I would say, and older, after a lot of work that you did, that you realised that actually that was probably the most important bit of the whole thing, was actually turning around and saying, sorry, I was completely out of order.
Yeah, and being, I don't want to say man enough, but writing to the point where you can say, I'm sorry and I was in the wrong, I think shows, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but shows maturity, and that you're okay to admit that you can make mistakes. Do you know what I mean? Nobody's perfect. Yeah. And it just, as I was saying in the last episode, actually, I'm referring to a lot of things back then. It's okay to be vulnerable. Do you know what I mean? It's, especially with the people you care about, it will help them to better understand where you're coming from. And it's not just like a constant game of like, oh, I'm trying to work out what's going in your head, and then you're being a complete a-hole most of the time, and I don't know why. And it's like, it just helps to clear up that confusion, I think, and create like an open
dialogue.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say.
Something that also, though, I would like to clarify is that you've used the word narcissistic about 50 times already just in this one podcast. And what you do and how you are is not narcissistic.
Mm-hmm.
It's trying to control a situation to make things better. Not to make you more powerful, which is a narcissist. Not to make yourself feel more important, which is a narcissist.
In my perception, make things better for everyone.
So you keep referring to it as being narcissistic, but actually it's not narcissistic behaviour, because that is for completely different and very selfish reasons. And I'm sure that anybody that's ever lived with a narcissist would completely see where I'm coming from with that.
Yeah, I think maybe it didn't come across right because I'm obviously really bad at talking. But I was more like, with the narcissist point of view, I was more saying that apologising can often stop people from taking that impression of you. Do you know what I mean? Because if you're admitting accountability, it's saying that you weren't trying to, you weren't trying to do it, and you're not okay with doing it. Do you know what I mean? It's not like this.
People that know you properly will know that anyway, but you're absolutely right. If you're aware that you are perpetrating this behaviour, for want of a better word, and that although the condition you have is the reason behind it, that you should never use that to excuse it, then yeah, you should obviously take responsibility and put your hands up and say, look, all I can do is try my best for it not to happen again. And to be fair to you, that is all you ever do. You never promise that it's never going to happen again. All you ever say is, I will try my best, I'll go and think about it really hard, and I will try and make sure that it doesn't happen again.
And that might seem a bit like empty or not fulfilling my end of the bargain, but I feel like if I ever promise to somebody that this won't happen again, that would be ignorant.
It's not something you can promise.
I can't.
No.
It's not something I genuinely go, right, I'm going to do this today. I'm going to be a complete idiot for no reason and just make everybody feel like rubbish. That's never something I can do. And it's always just spur of the moment. It just happens. It's like road rage. And it's kind of like a out-of-body experience. It's weird. I can't explain it.
It's just about taking responsibility for your actions, and the effect that admission that you have done something wrong, it has a soothing effect, I want to say, on the people around you. Like, when you've gone absolutely down your little brother's throat over nothing, and then you turn around and say, sorry, mate, I was being a bit of a div. It gives him some reinforcement that actually he's not this terrible, awful person whose only mission in life is to annoy you. You know, it gives him and me and anybody else who's been in that situation to receive one of your apologies, just the acknowledgement that actually maybe the whole situation was not our fault. Not to say that it's all your fault either, because it blatantly isn't, but it just helps the atmosphere and the environment that we have to live in.
Definitely. I'm not doing this purposely, but that actually leads into my next point really well as well. That can often, because obviously I'm never trying to create this atmosphere, create this animosity between us, and that can often lead to a certain level of self-hatred about my actions and the person that I am, that I can't even control to stop the person that I hate. Do you know what I mean? I think that's often something that's not really talked about with young people's mental health, but that your own self-image, not even just physically, but you morally as a person. I've had a lot of crises myself, thinking I actually hate myself as a person because I do all this to people all the time, and even though I apologise at the end of the day, that's just do you know what I mean? It's just, as you say, it's just a way to soothe things. It's not actually anything productive that's going to amend what I've done. Do you know what I mean?
But without a magic wand, which none of us have, there is no way to just turn around and fix how you are, because, as you've said, you don't do it on purpose.
Yeah. But it's like, I think that's why religion could be so important to some people, though. Because
absolutely.
It's often you can do this thing, however atrocious it is, and I think this is more stemming towards Christianity, obviously, but obviously there'll be different religions and stuff, but with Christianity you can just do whatever you want. Not whatever you want, but if you commit a sin, is what I'm trying to say, you can always atone for it, and that apology means that you're kind of reconciled. Whereas with me, because I don't necessarily feed into that religious perspective, I don't really have that support mechanism. I just kind of have to go, I've done this horrible thing, and I have to live with it, and I have to get through it, and that can be really hard without knowing how to do that. Do you know what I mean?
I think one of the problems that you would experience there as well is that very often, being in my shoes, for example, which is sometimes the only perspective we can do it from is our own, having to deal with these things by yourself is more difficult, I think, than anybody can actually imagine unless they've experienced it personally themselves. And I don't think I quite realised the extent of that until I met a group of friends who, it turns out, most of us, not all of us, but most of us have children with these issues, and we have to live with them on a daily basis. And actually being able to say, oh, my son did this today, and somebody not turning around going, oh my goodness, that's awful. How could you let them do that? And I've heard many times, just give them a quick slap, they'll be fine, as if you could kind of beat it out of a child. Or
if anything, that would just exacerbate it.
Exactly.
I wouldn't feel that support system there
or
anymore.
In my day, we would never have tolerated that, as if, you know, being from a past generation automatically gives you a key to this magic wonderland where children don't have these issues that they have to deal with.
And that's also a bit demeaning, because it's saying, like, in my day, we like, as you say, we wouldn't have like let that happen. But it's not like you're letting it happen. It just happens. Do you know what I mean?
But
I'm not letting it happen.
No, of course you're not. But
I hate the fact that it does. So.
Having those friends that know and have that personal experience of maybe not the same, but similar situations, it gives you a sounding board to say, right, this is how I responded in this situation. Would you say that was rational? Would you say that was reasonable? What could I have done differently? And they give you their perspective, their opinion, and it either agrees with yours,
curve.
Or it doesn't. But my concern for you is that you don't have that. I have that support because of you. I wouldn't have those friends if it wasn't for you. But you don't have the benefit of that support.
People that understand where I'm coming from.
Or just even like a sounding board.
Yeah.
You know, somebody you can go to and say, you'll never guess what I did to my mum today. Or you'll never guess what my mum came home and said to me today. And without that, I don't know how you manage it as well as you do.
I think that goes into the self-image bit a bit more, though, because you know that I don't often like watch videos of myself. Because,
no, you can't stand it.
Because I've obviously got cerebral palsy, if you didn't know. I hate the way that it's just so obviously
present,
and there's no way of hiding it, and you're just so obviously different. And if I just kind of live in my own, first person view, then you don't really notice it. I know that sounds ridiculous, but if you're disabled and you've lived with it your whole life, you don't really think of yourself as disabled. That becomes your normal. Do you know what I mean? So then when I see like images and stuff and videos, it makes me feel like
that's what other people must be seeing.
And that they couldn't possibly
be friends with somebody like that,
or not even just be just feel on a. It kind of makes you feel inferior. Do you know what I mean? You can never have it. It always feels like you can never have really a level conversation with somebody without them going, right, this is a disabled person. I've got to talk in this way, or I've got to do this, and I've got to make sure that I pull the chair out for them because their legs don't work properly and stuff like that.
So would you say that's your perception of what you've encountered as a teenager or a young adult with a disability, or would you say that is actually how it is in the world, that people see the way you walk?
Oh, it's definitely not how it is.
And think, oh, I better treat him just this little bit differently.
There's definitely the same with racism. There's definitely that subconscious bias that people have, but they can't help that. If they want to help you because you're disabled, that's good. Do you know what I mean? It's just it just makes you feel different, and there's no way of getting around that.
So you really find that a barrier?
Yeah, with making friends with people on a real level. Do you know what I mean? Without me thinking that they're in their own minds thinking all these different questions. How did he get disabled? Was he in an accident? How badly is he disabled? Do you know what I mean? What does he have to do that I didn't have to do at home? Do you know what I mean? Stuff like that.
But then if they take the time to become your friend, wouldn't that be questions that they would ask and you would answer just the same as you would say, like, what made you get your ears pierced?
I'm really open with stuff like that, but it's just the anxiety that just overwhelms me and creates like always a brick wall in my mind that I just can't get past. And that's why I'm not an extrovert in any sense of the word. Do you know what I mean?
Which is quite strange, bearing in mind that some of your behaviour, especially when you were younger, that you couldn't control was very extroverted.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying about that kind of like Jekyll and Hyde situation. It's like there's normal me that just would never want to get on anybody's bad side because that is the most embarrassing situation to me. Apart from when they've crossed the line, that's different. But
yeah, I won't get you started on that.
But there's the other me that just does not give two hoots about like where we are, if we're in public, how many people see. If I just get into that mode of tunnel vision and you have tipped me over the edge, or I've myself has tipped me over the edge, or just something has, there is no stopping or no predicting what then is going to happen. And the thing you were saying about a sounding board as well, going back to that self-image thing, which I was going to say is the reason why I don't really like going on targeted pages and stuff for people going through the same things and like people sharing their experiences and then you empathise and stuff like that, is I have real difficulty. It's something that I need to tackle because I always avoid it and I just don't think about it. But I have a real problem with identifying myself as different. Do you know what I mean?
But isn't that really strange to you that in one breath you're saying that you find it really difficult to identify yourself as different, and yet you're using the fact that that people will see you as different as your reason not to kind of put yourself out there and make friends? So that's a contradiction in terms, isn't it, really?
Yeah, I'll constantly contradict
He does. He constantly contradicts himself.
This is what I'm trying to say though, because in my mind it feels like two competing personalities. Do I want to take this risk? No, I don't, because it will lead to all this. Do I want to really outline and define who I am? No, I don't, because then that will make me feel like this and put me in a box.
But then can any 17-year-old define who they are really?
But also, even though it can be, I often feel like not putting myself in that box has often led to some of the best things I've ever done in my life. Like losing £50 was because I didn't think, oh, I'm just disabled. I can't diet. I can't do exercise. It was, in my mind at least, I'm a normal person. I'm too big. I need to lose weight.
Well, that was the funny thing. While you were getting bigger, it was like you had one perception, and I still don't know to this day what changed your perception on how you looked, but just all of a sudden, one day, completely out of the blue, right, that's it, I'm going on a diet, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And I mean, willpower, you've never seen anything like it in your life, but I don't know how you switched your perception so vastly, literally from one end where you would literally eat anything that was put in front of you.
I'm an extreme person, aren't I? I can think one thing one day, and then I can think something that really resonates with me, and then that changes me as a person for the rest of my life. Do you know what I mean?
But it's not easy to change the way you think. As you've said already in this podcast, you are amazingly stubborn sometimes.
Yeah. I think it was more like normal teenage experiences of, like, I don't know, like, maybe I fancy this girl. Like, there's other kids in the class. He's fitter than me, like, in a health sense.
Yeah.
He's more extroverted than me, so, like, do you know what I mean? And it was just, like, everything I compared to in my mind, it was like, he scores higher than me in every one of them categories, so why the hell would they,
even
like,
look?
do you know what I mean? The normal thing that every teenager gets. So I was like, the one thing that I can't control that fact that I've got disability. Yep. I can't control my perception and my mental health to an extent, obviously. But the one thing I can control is my weight. And I did, and I got it down, and I've got it a bit up now, and I'm going to look to control it again. Do you know what I mean? I love being in control of what I can do.
Yeah.
Which is why I think not putting myself in that box, going out for 10,000 step walks every day and not thinking myself as disabled necessarily.
Mm-hmm. Even though it nearly killed you every time.
Yeah, but I think if I thought of myself as, oh, like my legs are bad, I would just stop. Because I don't think of that, I just keep going until I literally cannot walk anymore. Do you know what I mean? I keep pushing until I literally can't do anymore. And I feel like, while it's really detrimental to my identity, it also helps me with like pushing myself. Like
it definitely does give you determination. However, I can see huge parallels between how you pushed yourself to do that and how, when you are fixed in an emotional or an angry or a pensive state, or you get into a particular fad about something, that you push it to its very limit where it's just about to crack before you can step away and think, actually, no, that's enough.
Yeah.
So that is ever present in everything that you do. And as you say, it has its bad points, but also it has its good points.
Well, it's like you've said
it's how you channel it.
A few times. It's like I got so, and it's because I brought it up. This is an example I have in my head, but the weight loss, I got so extreme with that because I'm an extreme person, that you even said towards the end that I might be getting some sort of, I've not looked into it this well, so don't quote me on this, but some sort of body dysmorphia or something like that, because I had lost all the weight that I possibly could. Don't get me wrong, I wasn't stick insect, but my body type isn't that. I'm never going to be that.
No.
And I was still seeing myself as like this 300-pound whale almost, that just had weight pouring out of me, do you know what I mean, and fat pouring out of me, and that just wasn't the case.
But isn't that then a case of perception over reality?
But that's
and pushing it to its very limit, because although everybody you came into contact with told you how amazing you looked, how much more healthy you looked, how it must be easier for you to walk, all these positives that they could possibly derive from the situation you had created, but your perception was, no, I'm still not where I need to be. I've got a goal. I need to reach that goal. I need to keep going. To the point where it was making you ill.
And it's not just my perception, it's also my negative mindset as well, because there is never going to be a case, or I can't see in the foreseeable future a case where I'll, like the saying goes, I will never see a glass half full. Do you know what I mean? Like, it will always be half empty, and why the hell is it half empty? Do you know what I mean?
Well, that is the very definition of perception, isn't it?
Yeah. And then, yeah, like, this perception can often cause, like, as a result, a lot of damage to, like, even the closer relationships like ours.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Sam, do you think, like, our relationship's different compared to, like, normal stereotypical brothers?
Well, kind of and kind of not. Because, like, brothers are supposed to do like everything together. They play catch, they run around in like the park, and like have a laugh together. But like with us, we just like we play games. We play like cricket and football and rugby with each other.
We have fun and we laugh.
That's really fun. And
but we
laugh.
bicker 90% of the time. Like, we have a go at each other a lot.
Yeah, we have a go at each other a lot. So it's not like a normal one. And how it's normal is that it's just, you're still my brother, and you try your best to be like the normal brother. But then it's actually very good to be like you are, because like it's better to be different and to be very normal.
Very well said, Sam. So yeah, I think that just shows there from like his perspective as an 8-year-old, that like obviously my perception of a situation, and even how I perceive our relationship, can, like, I can often overstep the mark, like forget that he's even 8 and stuff like that, and how, like, even though, as I say, and you said as well, we try to have a laugh, and we do have a laugh, like, we're hysterical most of the time, we also argue and pick faults at each other, even though brothers do that, I think, a lot more than the average. Would you agree?
I think your relationship as brothers has a lot in common with the way that brothers normally are. If you know, my knowledge of sibling relationships is anything to go by, siblings do get on each other's nerves, which you both do. However, I think that siblings of children or young adults that have the needs that you have are often overlooked.
Well, definitely, yeah. Which is why we need to have you on.
Oh, excuse me.
Yeah.
That I just want to say, how we were just like talking about how our relationship is different to like normal brothers, or if it even is. I just want to say there's one thing that I think we'll enjoy watching together.
Yeah.
Because we both like it. Like wrestling.
Yeah.
We both like it. I like the moves in wrestling. I like some of the wrestlers in it. It's just something we both enjoy together.
So if we can find something that we both enjoy doing something, then it's great.
Because like he likes watching football, and like I like watching. I don't even know.
The Thundermans and Henry.
I think as well. What it's not. It doesn't help, but it's a bit different. Is like our relationship. I would say that whilst we're obviously different people, we're quite similar. Do you know what I mean? We're like, our humour's quite similar, and just the way we are as people, just like, don't give two shits. People, do you know what I mean? I don't know how I was supposed to put that, but with me and him, we're quite different.
Yeah, you are.
Like, he's just a completely different person to me. It doesn't mean I don't love him any less. It's just harder to build that connection on similarities, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so basically, it's like, even though we have a different relationship, as brothers, we still love each other the same that normal brothers would.
And that's what's most important.
Yeah, it's not how like you do stuff together, or like all the fun like things you do together. It's basically all about how much you love each other, because like that's the most important thing about family.
Absolutely.
That
You're gonna
like
make me
your
cry,
family.
Sam. So the question I asked last time is it healthy to spend this long in lockdown, and should people with mental health issues be given more support? Like,
Can I have an answer?
You can have an answer. You can.
I don't think it's even like healthy to be in this lockdown for like long, because staying in your home and just like not going out to like restaurants like you normally would, it's like affecting your health, because you shouldn't just be able to stay in that long and be fine, because it would normally make you go crazy.
You're absolutely
That's exactly
right.
what I said last week.
Yeah.
And by the way, if you haven't checked out that last episode, a lot of this context comes from that. So if you wanted to go check that out, or I'm not even going to say if you want to, do go check that out. It's a good listen, at least I think, and it should give you a lot of context for this one. And I guess the second part of that is, should people with mental health issues be given more support? And obviously, because you guys are here, I'm going to extend that to, should families with mental health or people with mental health in them be given more support?
To both them questions, yes.
Why would you say that, Sam?
Because it's really hard in this time, especially for people without mental health, like my brother does. But if you do have mental health, like my brother does, it's really hard to like stay on track of your life when you are in lockdown, because like going out for exercise runs will be good for my brother, but he can't do that a lot anymore because we're in lockdown.
Really well said. What do you think?
Definitely families and the children and young people themselves need more support, but in fairness to service providers, the situation that our family is in is actually quite isolating from other people, and
because our family, like our extended family, are quite spread out. It's not like next door neighbours or next.
But even if they were local, because as far as I know, nobody else in my family has kind of exactly the same situation as we have. I probably wouldn't go to them anyway, to be fair, because with the best will in the world, they would try and understand, but obviously they wouldn't be able to. But also, it's quite embarrassing to be in this situation, and I know a lot of families that live with this every day and can't bring themselves to speak to people about it. They're too embarrassed to go to the doctors, they're too embarrassed to go to CAMHS. And for instance, your situation at the moment, you've been waiting, what is it now, 14 months for a follow-up appointment with CAMHS yourself because of lockdown. So even though the support organisation is there, it's in place, it's ready and willing to help you because of COVID,
Yeah.
They've had to shut their doors and only deal with the most vulnerable of people, which they wouldn't know whether you have or haven't been in the last 14 months.
I think the most important thing, obviously, is for you, so you can interject. But I think the most important thing for you is always respite. Do you know what I mean? And obviously, you can't get that in lockdown because nobody can take over from you. Do you know what I mean? But it's like, I think just the constant, especially in a flat, the way we're just constantly on top of each other.
Yeah.
It's just so draining.
Suffocating.
Yeah, because even though we all love each other, nobody, and that means that even if you're so in love with somebody and you're like soulmates and you do not want to spend 24 hours a day with them.
You need personal space, definitely. And lockdown has taken that away from so many people in very similar situations.
And I'm definitely a person, as I say, I'm a bit of an introvert. I'm definitely an introvert. I like being in my own company, even though it can be like, I can create like a depressive cloud sometimes around me when I do it. I like just being able to sit and think and do nothing, whereas you two are quite like energetic and want to do stuff. Do you know what I mean? Where even if that's cleaning, do you know what I mean? It's, you're still doing something all the time, and it's just, I think that conversing, is that the right word? Like personalities in a restricted area can and just create a bomb. I think that kind of sums it up quite well. But then again, like, even though it's all of us now, that's just our perspectives, and I would love to hear the listeners' thoughts on it as well. What do you guys think? And yeah, just really encourage you guys to get involved. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I found this really interesting, and I think that's really important to just have these kind of open discussions with your close family and friends, just to see where everyone's head's at, really. You two have been great guests, and you, Sam, have done an awesome job.
Also, I want to say something. Sorry for all the viewers at home that this was really long.
Yeah, it was really long. It was draining, but we got through it. High five. You did really well.
It's drained a lot of energy. It takes a lot of work to record your own podcast. And these are words of a wise man, Sam.
You're having like your own diva moment. You've been on one episode.
If you want to start a podcast, make sure you have family or friends with you. To make sure you're doing it right, because this is actually really hard. Because you've got to like have audio, you've got to have a script ready, and like loads of other things. So it's really hard. So yeah.
Well said, Sam. Round of applause. All I have left to say really is, if you are listening to just the audio, please remember to share and download so that we can get the word out there and start making our community even bigger. And if you are listening on YouTube, if you could like, comment and subscribe, it really helps us out, and I really appreciate it a lot. I'd like to say a huge thank you to the people that engaged with the first proper episode. That's how I like calling it anyway. The support has just been absolutely amazing, and has actually managed to convince probably the biggest procrastinator in the world to continue doing something for once. So that's an achievement in itself. Next week I'm going back to school. Yippee! So I thought it'd be only right to do a kind of back to school episode, and how like that's kind of affected my mental health, and how it can really be a daunting task for some people, which for others it might just be like an everyday thing. But yeah, until then, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I think with the addition of Sam, he definitely adds a little bit of spice to it.
Yeah.
And you'll hopefully hear from me and maybe even the other two very, very soon. I'll see you later, and bye.